these are the three things that we need to be, to belong, and then to become. So in my language, it's to be is like in tune with the nervous system, with my state, where I am, what is my system, my biological system actually experiencing, feedbacking to me. So and to give myself the allowance to be exactly how it is in this very moment. And from there, that to be like belonging is the transference of, that's the dialogue, that's the dialogue. I belong to the world, to my friends, to my spouse, to myself, to the infinite. And to find like my way of responding to all that touch points of that context. And in order with the touch points, then there is the becoming. If I allow that as much as possible, and of course that's only possible if I'm not dealing with a lot of survival stress inside of my system, to unfold the potential, to find what is my true response to the context that I'm in, and to me, that is by itself a very spiritual thing.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Free Radical Podcast. Today, I'm joined by psychologist, philosopher, and newly discovered friend, Madav. Madav is a trauma-informed facilitator and trauma-sensitive philosopher working at the intersection of nervous system understanding, attachment, and relational inquiry. His work focuses on how connection becomes possible when the nervous system feels safe enough to stay present. Rather than emphasizing emotional processing or interpretive frameworks, he points toward what supports safety, dignity, and life-friendly connection in human relationships. He is the founder of the Neurobody Method and a teacher at the Learning Love Institute. We explored together with Madav a whole array of topics from interrelatedness and life as an ongoing dialogue, and then communication, the nature of reality as an ongoing communication. We spoke about vulnerability, safety, false promises about safety, the real one that allows for belonging and for becoming, our ever-evolving potential, and so many other topics that I don't want to spoil the whole thing with the trailer now here. So you are more than welcome to join us in the conversation. This is the Free Radical Podcast, and to support it, please subscribe to our channel by clicking on the bell. And if you feel inspired and nourished by the conversation, feel free to share it, to like it, to share your comments, to share your thoughts with us so we can keep this conversation ongoing. Without further ado, dear friends, here is Madav. Dear Madav, thank you so much for joining us today in the Free Radical Podcast. Welcome.
Swami, thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really, really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm similarly looking forward to our exchange, to our conversation. For the listeners and those who are following this podcast, actually we met a few months ago, first time,
Summer,
right?
yeah,
It
August.
was not in my plan or in your plan. Yeah, in Bhakti Bloom Festival in Berlin. And yeah, we eventually first we shared a little bit personally, then we ended up sharing in a symposium together, exposing on different topics. And I think you took some time to read one of my books,
Yes.
and we had some back and forth
Yeah,
privately.
first I saw
So,
you
yeah.
at your teaching, like self-love, and I remember so well, like, inside it was like, yeah, a spiritual guy talking about self-love. That was the expectation, like, or my projection, not my, that was my projection, and coming into that. And I remember sitting there on the side, and how I never heard anyone from a spiritual world talking about so severely about, like, it was felt so much rooted in the real daily experience. It felt really earthed, down to earth, what you said, and very profound wisdom, but in the same time light, and yeah, and your presence was really intriguing.
Appreciate it. And yeah, I remember how you approached me after the presentation, and that you were sitting close to me also, and I could have eye contact, so I could easily tell, okay, something is moving inside you, which I don't know who were you, but eventually I came to know. So yeah, I'm very glad that the introductory topic to start our relationship with was self-love and unconditional love, and such a noble, dignifying topic. So I also always like to ask to my guests, and probably you already say a little bit about it, but what brings you today to this conversation? Which are your hopes? What are you looking for in today's meeting?
Yeah,
If anything, I don't know.
I was sitting the last 2 3 weeks really in a cave, and been really in a tunnel. I was feeling into it today, and was going through my notes a little bit that I made when I was reading your book, The Evolution of Love, and
Mm-hmm.
and then I realized somehow, because you gave me a little bit, like, it felt inside on an unconscious level, like kind of an order and an allowance. Somehow, like, you were putting things in order, because we're basically saying the same things, just from a very different approach somehow. And it's really very interesting how many things are aligned. And you have figured it out before. You aligned them. However you did this, that would be something I would be interested in. Um, how you discovered the order, and yeah, and I felt like a lot of things really fell into place for me in the last couple of weeks. Like, all my gems that I were carrying around for years, and I felt they were precious, but I, I had came up with this picture, like having them in the storage, and everyone was precious and
Mm-hmm.
beautiful and like really great, but not having the right place to put them, like to have the right setting. And now I really feel that I created the foundation of my work, and now it's a house, and now I have rooms, and now I can put all the furniture and all the gems and everything inside, and it just fits perfectly. And I'm on a completely inner high and joy, and I had like amazing weeks.
Hmm. Well, beautiful to catch you in that particular space and having this conversation at this important chapter of your journey. Yeah, yeah. Thank you. So, in the context of what you just mentioned, of your putting your gems together and making some beautiful necklace, so to say, weaving all of them and finding a thread and putting them in a certain unique way that makes deep sense to you and is filling you with inspiration and enthusiasm. Also, you shared with me recently a paper that you wrote, like summarizing probably this recent process that you've gone through, titled Response Ability. And I'm pausing between those two words because
Yeah,
that's with the
responsibility.
hyphen, the
Yeah,
word
yeah.
is
It
divided.
needs really an
Response.
explanation a little bit in the English word.
Yeah, yeah,
Antwortfähigkeit, we
yeah.
say in
Yeah, no,
German.
it's fun, and I love to speak about responsibility in that way. I personally, in my books, also write responsibility with a hyphen in between So your paper is about responsibility as the foundational principle of living beings. So I was thinking, yeah, today we can explore the content a little bit with you, but before entering into the details of the paper and some of the main points there, maybe if you would like to share with us a general idea about the suggested title of the paper, Responsibility as the Foundational Principle of Living Beings.
Yeah. So I think I can see like everywhere this structure that's really repeating. And so I coming from the trauma work, I coming from nervous system work, and I never felt really comfortable with the word trauma. Somehow it felt somehow small, and like, and of course there's a lot of vibes now attached to it because it's used in so many ways. And so, but in this, what think I could find is the structure that actually it's always about still being able to respond, so that actually everything that lives has a protection logic inherent, that it's working for to make sure that there's a continuation in order to respond. You put it so nicely in your book about life is relational. Life is a dialogue. So if we have a dialogue, there must be a response. There must be the ability to respond. Otherwise, there is not a dialogue. So we are in this process of there's context, and we need to respond somehow to the context. And if we can't really do this anymore, then there's actually no life. I don't know. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, the line came, the end of dialogue is the end of life. Something like that, right?
Yeah, and
that's how it
exactly.
translated in this moment. The end of a conversation is the end of life as we know it, because life is conversational, logical by nature.
And so in order, if this is true, and we both agree that it is, so there must be an inherent architecture inside of any living being to provide the ability to respond. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense, because like there are dangers out there. It's like not every environment and habitat is really friendly. So, or
So
nourishing.
we need to be equipped with tools to
Yes,
live,
exactly.
to deal with the challenges of the environment.
So basically, the short thing of that, what I just put into a paper, is that the ability to be traumatized, as the trauma, the capacity to even develop a trauma, must be inherent in order to live. So that every being, every cell, every organism has a protection mechanism in order to, what do I do if the context is not very friendly, if I need to protect myself? Like, then you write as well, like then there's contraction, we contract. We limit our possibilities to respond, to give answers, to unfold the potential, until the circumstances getting better, where the resources are back there, so we can breathe in, we can expand again, and then we are able to unfold our potential. But in order, but there must be a mechanism, an architecture inside in order to protect to give the ability to contract and to withhold to the minimum of responsibility so that we can stay in the dialogue.
Okay, there's a lot there. I appreciate it. So first we have this important idea, and of course I'd like to talk about it and write about it, and you also, this notion of life is a relational process. That's how you put it in your paper, and an ongoing exchange between a system and its environment, which I, of course, totally agree with. And again, I always like to play out these things to its ultimate implications, because sometimes we can say, I don't know, speaking from our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, everything is interconnected. Okay, what's the implication of everything is interconnected? Means we are all in relationship. There's interrelationship. Okay, what does it mean that everything is in relationship? Everything is in dialogue with everything else. So it's an ongoing conversation. So for me, at least, it's very important to articulate.
Yes.
What do we mean by interrelation or interconnected? Because if not, we don't see clearly the implications of all that, and we cannot live that interconnectedness, that dialogue, that communication. And we cannot, as you say, become properly aware of the tools that we have inherent to deal with the environment, with the context, with the challenges that brings. Yeah.
So in order to keep up the dialogue, we need an architecture that makes sure that we are able to do so. And one thing that sticks out is trauma, or how I see it actually is that the science of trauma and the neuroscience is actually just the magnifying glass of that structure, because we look at things usually then when stuff doesn't run well, and we think there's something to fix or to repair or to heal. And I don't think there is actually any healing necessary, because there's no, if you really go there's actually no wounding, because the contraction is already part of the design. In order to contract and put I don't want to make clear that I'm talking about the architecture, not about how it feels inside. I don't want to diminish any turmoil, and certainly not. I'm completely the opposite. I want to actually try to put away all these things. So there's actually, if we just look at it, if there's just contraction that keeps on holding for better times, for resources, until, and you put this as well, like the world is about unfolding potential, which is expansion. Like to keep up, like not that the dialogue is not every time the same. So it's like we keep on going, evolution, as you said. But in order that evolution by itself is possible, we need, for example, the capacity to be traumatized. Otherwise, we don't feel, or that we don't find answers. We can't keep on going.
So I'd like to share at this point, since you are speaking about trauma, and as you mentioned, different people will speak about trauma in different ways, that sometimes the pros and cons to when some word becomes famous, and it may help for people to have a word for certain experiences, to be able to voice their experiences and articulate it, but at the same time, the more popular it becomes, eventually it can mean many things at the same time, and the original meaning, whatever, gets lost. So here in your paper, you connection to what you just said, speaking about contraction, you define trauma as, and I'm quoting, an intelligent contraction of response ability under overwhelm.
Yeah.
Which is, again, a very interesting, intriguing way of approaching the idea. No? Trauma is an intelligent contraction. So intelligent, you are qualifying contraction with intelligence. Intelligent contraction of response ability under overwhelm.
Yeah.
So, so by this definition, trauma doesn't sound like a defect, like a mistake, but more like a protective logic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
And so this is what I figured out, that actually if you just take that as a general logic, it actually fits to everything.
Yeah. I'm wondering, Madav, if you have any thoughts, if we redefine or recalibrate trauma in that way, or understand trauma in that way, it's an intelligent contraction of responsibility under overwhelm, then what happens to shame or self-judgment or moralization when we really allow this redefinition of trauma to land in us? How those things like shame or self-judgment retranslate themselves, according to you?
Yeah, because that's their different levels. Because I really, what I'm pointing toward is like why this is actually happening. The toxic shame that we have, or the scarcity that we grow up, is another thing. And in this way, I think I really found as well like a thing that was never really highlighted about how important attachment is. And here we are again with the dialogue. So we are thinking about human beings. We know we're hardwired for attachment. That's basically, like, at least for everyone in the field, not a newsflash. So that's somehow a given. But actually, why is that? I ask myself, why is that actually? So what is behind that? And my answer I found so far in my thesis about this, and it's all the same logic about staying responsible, is in order to keep responsibility, we have 3 channels how to keep on, like, transferring, like transmission channels for crucial information in order to keep on going. So one is the DNA, the genome, and epigenetics. Epigenetics is like the small term, like in time wise, like the shorter term things that we can give to the next generation. And then the human being is the being of that needs most of the we not determined, so we can live in all kinds of habitats. That's evolutionary process that we have like an advantage. But therefore we need a lot of information about what to eat, how to navigate in the habitat we live, and of course social cues, and we need to learn the capacity to give response, to stay in dialogue and context, and this works through co-regulation. So that was a long loop to your actual question, is like how does shame and self-love is connected to that, because when we don't receive that really important transmission channel that gives us like the code on like how do I navigate in this world, and it's not through words, it's about co-regulation, it's about like receiving, like the medium is resonance, attunement. and to how do I find my answers, then like our sense of self is distorted as well. And it starts there, like because the resources of the caregivers are, they don't have so much responsibility as well from the previous generation. So we are dependent on how developed they are. And then that's just the context of the emotional habitat we grow up. And everything is just evolving. There's just a very logic architecture behind that. How do we react to the circumstances, to the context that we find, the emotional context? And whatever it is, if there is scarcity, there's a lack of attunement, this leads then, the symptoms is then toxic shame, like self-love, inner judge, all these things we are like, it is torturing us on a daily basis. Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, and you have brought at this point a few times the word attachment, which I appreciate because, again, many times, especially in some spiritual circles, the word attachment carries some negative connotation, that attachment is bad in all of its forms. Well, it's not true. I mean, everything has its own brilliant reality, and everything has its own, the distortion of that brilliant reality, and attachment is not an exception to that rule. So you describe attachment not mainly as a feeling or as a need, but as you say, the architecture through which human responsibility comes into being.
Yeah, that's the transmission channel. That's the transmission channel, how we actually learn to build the capacity to respond to the context that it is around us, and to find in the very end, like answers that are coming out of ourselves. Then and there we go with like potential unfolding, because that's, I see it as well. That's the goal. The goal is not feeling good or whatever. It's just that the potential that is inside of us can unfold, and that's only possible when the resources are there and the circumstances haven't been like that we need to stay in contraction because it feels like attachment feels dangerous, or I never found the resources. But what I believe that there's a inherent wisdom in there, that the contraction or it knows there's always expansion possible. And even here, the expansion always happens in all therapy. That's all, really well said so far, that we know it works through attachment. That's the most important thing in therapy, in any kind of healing, because here again, it needs co-regulation. That's the foundation of expansion. That's my goal. When you said like my goal, my strong point in this whole thing, that attachment is one of the most important things, and there is no way of, because we are not just dependent on it because for the emotional need, that's a part of it, but really because it is the main transmission channel of information that we need. And this is why it is architecture built like that we can't opt out here, because we need to keep up that transmission channel, even if the costs, like the personal emotional costs, are like devastating.
Yeah, I cannot of course, avoid listening to you speaking about detachment and the development of a healthy identity and relationship with everything, to try to apply all that to the spiritual notion, and in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, the idea of developing a loving relationship with God and a spiritual identity in eternity and all that. But all of that is based on attachment, actually, on a healthy sense of attachment, and of course, I can see how, in order to be attached, or in order to open myself, first I need to feel safe, right? Because if not, as you say, if I don't feel safety in the environment, I will contract, I will go in hibernation mode or whatever. So how crucial it is, before we speak about attachment, before we speak about being vulnerable and opening myself, to perceive that safety, and how much that goes back to, as you mentioned, to many times our childhood, that our primary caretakers, and how that can affect our unfolding as adults. So I'm thinking, what does a child, for example, what does a child actually learn through attachment, especially in moments of overwhelm? I'm asking you. And how does this learning shape adult life?
It learns a certain way of how the world is. We am I welcome? Am I safe? Is there someone else who takes care of my needs? And how quickly they do? Is this a reliable source? Many of us had loving parents, sometimes or many times, but sometimes very unpredictable, angry, enraging parents too. It's is it a reliability is a very important thing. And there's another transmission channel that I never not mentioned yet, is narratives. We inhale the narratives as well from our parents, what their mindsets. So this is how the nervous system shapes, and because we are very vulnerable, this is exactly how nature made sure that we get the right care, because this is what human beings make so special. They are extremely vulnerable, but at the same time they have the ability to live everywhere, and they have almost endless possibilities, potential for adaptation. But the price is their vulnerability. So in order to make sure that the potential can unfold, nature put in this attachment system, so that it makes sure that the child receives the ability for co-regulation, because it's learned through co-regulation, emotional care and all these things. And of course, the social cues, how do I behave? There's healthy shame, when to know, the toxic shame is my identity. The healthy shame is, oh, I have done something wrong, but not I'm bad. So, but that's a social adjustment system as well. And all that is transmission through the channel of attachment. So, and that shapes the nervous system and basically gives a feeling, how is the world? Is it a dangerous place, or am a welcome place and everything is, there's abundance? Or is it my parents feel as victims, and there's just scarcity, and you have to, be aggressive all the time to get your minimum of attachment that you need in order to survive.
Yeah. Survival.
That's
survival mode.
exactly. And all these energy is actually it's packaged in the attachment. everything goes through that transmission channel. That's the dialogue.
I'm thinking, Madav, how, of course, it's so crucial, as you say, the narratives we inherit from our primary caretakers at home and how that inform our view of reality, as you say, whether it is life is in my favor or there is some universal conspiracy against me and I become defensive and I become cynical or I become afraid. So many possible landscapes there. But also I'm thinking, and you briefly also mentioned that in your paper, let's say someone had a relatively healthy childhood and eventually they join a spiritual religious group, and with any group there is some, again, social cues, some narratives, sometimes inherited narratives, sometimes intrinsic narratives. But you speak about the religion of functionality, a cultural religion of functionality, or in terms of, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of where safety and belonging are promised through performance, optimization, discipline. So, and I can totally see that, and I can totally understand how that's a currency in the religious market. In many other markets, also the religious spiritual market. And some of us may come from some people may come with a broken, dysfunctional family, and already for them that's the currency. I need to perform, I need to compete, I need to be perfect. Some others may not come from that place, but they receive those types of values and they think, oh, well, this is how spirituality works. So performance, optimization, discipline, rather than unconditional love and acceptance to begin with, including our imperfections. So I'm thinking how, again, for some people, when joining a spiritual group or any group, safety and belonging are promised through performance, optimization, discipline. How does or why this form of safety, quote unquote, often increase overwhelm rather than reducing it?
But that's just a promise. There is no safety.
Yeah.
It's just a promise.
Yeah.
So, but I so you mentioned, like my term of religion of functionality, but I a little bit get confused because there are actually two levels. So which one you're addressing basically? Should we talk about that, or should we talk about what happened to the promise why people join, let's say, any spiritual movement, or what's the question? I don't know which one to follow right now.
Sorry if I didn't make myself clear, or sorry if I misread some of the points of your paper. As I say, I didn't have enough time to go through it in detail as I wanted. Yeah. No. So what I understood is that is some.
I used to confuse myself.
It's fine. Hey, it's fine. So I understood relation of functionality more, and again, I may be totally wrong, but my point is, okay, safety and belonging. We all need safety, again, real safety, but sometimes there is a promise of safety, which is not safety actually, or a promise of belonging, but you can only earn it, or that is promised through performance and being perfect and whatever.
Yeah, it's
right?
that's what left kind of. It's somehow that this term is for me just like a term that, harvest, like put everything together, like how the dysfunctionality of our world these days, because everything works through functionality. Like we need to function because that's what's left when we don't get enough attachment, if we don't feel nourished enough. Or a lot of the narratives that our caregivers already have is they're not interested in our world. So as well, there's no co-regulation for our inner process. So they give us, they mirror us. You need to function in us. You have to be in a certain way in order to receive love, affection, what, like this little attachment that they have to offer. And so we need to leave ourselves. We get somehow, like, not intentionally, it's just everything is inner. It's a very logic structure. Nothing happens by real bad intentions. That's really necessary as well. Like, I don't believe in that. It's just inherent. So if we don't feel sense in ourselves because of the lack of attachment, then we're looking for it. We're looking for it because here again, as you said, and I know that you agree with, like, when life is a dialogue, where's my sense? Where's my sense of the world? And if I was thinking it actually today, it's like that why attachment is so deep when we not can take off, because that's the sense of being alive, is to respond and to unfold the potential. So if we have an upbringing with a lot of scarcity, we feel that. So we're looking for, and we don't have orientation. That's the attachment is as well as the source of orientation. How do I navigate here? So if there is a scarcity, then I don't have the, because of the lack of co-regulation, I don't find orientation inside of myself. And I haven't found enough orientation with my caregivers, how they teach me how to find orientation within me. So I'm still walking around in the world and looking for the orientation. Mm-hmm. So, like any real spiritual offers or like wannabe spiritual offers are very intriguing. It's just sometimes it's by chance if you're like where you end up. Does it make sense?
Yeah. I'm thinking with I'm thinking that when someone is brought up with considerable scarcity of orientation, following your words, and the person is basically overwhelmed and looking for orientation, and again, spiritual groups in particular will offer these promises of orientation. It becomes such an easy match, so to say. And I'm not saying that's something wrong. The problem is when the promises, as we were saying, are not of real safety, but look like real safety. And for someone who is disoriented and in deep need of that, they will be so quickly running in that direction. But what happens when then the promise of safety was not a real one, and that can be devastating.
Yeah.
And for someone who is already experiencing scarcity of that, and then a unique promise of that comes, and then they go and that was not as it was promised, that can be so disappointing and discouraging and led people to a very fatalistic outlook or conclusion.
Because they don't understand, and it's like, again, it's not their fault. They just don't have they didn't receive the orientation for it. And they can't even, this is why it's so intriguing. Because people who never really experience safety, they don't know how it feels. They can't even say what is safety and what is not. I mean, I can't tell you among how many seminars or like any gatherings I've been where they promise safety, and And like 10 minutes later, it's like, what the fuck are you doing here? You have no clue at all what safety means.
Mm. Mm.
Like that the facilitator has just really no clue. They use it as a buzzword and they're
Yeah.
they're they're longing for it as well, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah, no, and also if you promise safety in advance, it's like you are given a warranty, you will have safety here. And for me, that's kind of contradictory to what a real experience of safety will be. Like, it's not that I have someone trying to convince me, you will be safe, you are safe here. Because the more someone insists, you are safe, probably I will feel this doesn't sound safe,
No, no,
doesn't feel safe.
that's basically that's a
Yeah.
red flag. When
Yeah,
someone
basically,
is claiming
if you
that.
cannot exactly, you cannot tell me that I'm safe. I have to experience that for myself. Even as you say, for some people, they may lack that prior experience of safety, so they may not have some orientation as to how safety tastes like, look like.
Yeah.
So, what will you say to that to someone who comes from a background of abundant scarcity of safety, so they don't have a point of reference how safety looks like. So, but they need it and they are looking for that uh, even unconsciously, but they don't know how does it feel like. So, what will you say if that may to give some sort of orientation for someone who feels maybe listening now this conversation like, yeah, I need safety, I never receive it, I don't have a point of reference, I don't know how that feels like, tastes like, looks
Mm.
like, but I need it.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid of, in the name of safety, embracing a false promise and being betrayed and becoming more cynical. So, and I'm not asking here you to give an answer that will solve everyone's problems. I don't want to put that much pressure on you. But if you have any
I
thoughts on that.
remember you sitting on the podium and like, oh, and I should give you that answer in 2 minutes. I remember someone was asking you at the podium as well, like a really big, complicated question, and then you said, "Yeah, and you want to get this answer in
Yeah.
2 minutes." Um,
I'll give you a few more than 2 minutes, so
um,
no problem.
yeah, this is yeah, basically that's what I try to point out with my paper and work in order to show what is the actually architecture of safety, so that there's something that we can really comprehend cognitively. And if I would have someone opposite to me and he would come what you said, then I would go in his biography and I would press probably find markers, circumstances in his life where he can or had the experience of safety. And then I would try to lead him there and to say like, okay, now that's and feel into that, like resonating with the feel and like, okay, that's safety. And what I say many times to my clients as well is safety is an objective feeling. There is no one that can tell you if you're safe or not. You feel safe or you don't feel safe. That's not even something you can negotiate, even for yourself. That's like you are or you don't. And
Mm-hmm.
and here's the question. So my whole approach is called like somewhat like by befriending the nervous system. So here would come in the friendship, a nice way to approach and to accept and to approach yourself, like how is it to be in the state of not feeling safe, and like giving a more precise structure of how it is by being there and like So I'm here with my presence. So the person has the ability to has some co-regulation, has some more capacity in this moment to encounter that. Safety is not negotiable. It's like you feel it or not. It's like with the boundaries. That you can't even define them really. You feel them or you don't.
In connection to safety, in your paper, speaking about real safety, not to, again, false promises of safety and apparent of that, but also you, if I remember correctly, in your paper you describe real safety not as control or even as predictability, but you use this expression as the wideness of response corridors.
Yeah.
So can you say more about what do you mean by this wideness of response
So here the
corridors?
thing is, life is unpredictable. No? You know that. So there's nothing to
Yeah,
control. And
we agree on that one.
yeah, and
Even if we disagree on everything else, we will agree on that one, all of us.
I know some people who think that's not the case, or met, let's say. So it what achievable for oneself is a safety for myself is like that I know I can deal with the unpredictability. So if I received like if it was back in my childhood or maybe now with a good teacher or even a good sangha, so there can be happen like or through a lot of chanting and that can happen. There's co-regulationing happening. So if I'm safe enough, then I'm flexible. Then I'm flexible, and I have our ability for differentiation. Like I can have a variety of answers, like not to responses, a variety of responses to different contexts. The context is not scaring me, doesn't scare me. And if I feel I have like abundance of reservoir of responses to the unpredictability, then I feel safe, like within myself. And then there is safety with someone else or in a group where all the energy signatures that all the other nervous systems have, like they are in dialogue. That's the thing. They are in dialogue if you want or not. They're talking to each other through resonance. So and there might be something that you can't even put words to it that happens and you don't feel safe. And that's okay. I have a really nice story, if you allow me, that maybe shows that very short. So I'm in a men's group here in Basel, and usually before we even going into the sharing, we like so. My name is, and I feel safe with myself, and I feel safe with the others. And then you look everyone into the eyes, and you say, "I feel safe with you." So somehow it started the other way around. So I was last, and I felt that something is off for me with the guy next to me. I didn't know him so well, and however, something was off, and everyone was saying something, and I was inside already having the battle. So should I say something or not? Even I had this battle with myself because I don't. For yeah, trying to protect the belonging, like not being the one who's disturbing the circle or whatever. But I felt the truth. Something is off. So the turn was to the guy next to me, and he said to me, "I don't feel safe with you." He looked me into the eyes and said, "I don't feel safe with you." And and what I experienced in this moment was just like such a big weight was just dropping, and like, because in this moment coherence was there. So, and then he was sharing what that he tried to avoid as well, and whatever is what he receives that is off for him. So but we stayed in it. We just stayed with that because I took it not personal. He didn't took it personal. So we just stayed with, oh, there's something in your energy right now that is creating something in my nervous system that doesn't feel safe with. And by like just really being there and hold it in presence, we came much closer, really much closer in this moment. And the whole group were like really, was like really settling and was deeper. Everyone shared afterwards like how touching it was. And for me as well. So, then we had like 15 minutes or so to really stay with that. And then it was not completely gone, but it was much better because we addressed it and we not try to put it under the carpet. This is what usually happens, if you even feel it.
Thank you for the story. Yeah, it's interesting how, and I can relate to so many situations in my own life, whether I'm perceiving something or I'm witnessing someone else perceiving something, and how we can perceive so many things. And I'm not downplaying what we perceive, but many times we may perceive something, but the narrative attached to what we feel may not be that true. Like, okay, I'm feeling, again, something is off with this person next to me. And the narrative that may be created in our mind will be, there's something wrong with the other person. That person has something against me. And maybe the person next to me is afraid of me. And that person may be thinking something negative about me as well. So, but once we are able to voice it, so to say, or to articulate on a relatively safe space, yeah, it's so clarifying. And as you say, such big weight disappears, and we can see reality with less and less filters.
Yeah.
So thank you for that sharing.
Yeah, and the circle was a safe space as well to allow both of us to show up with our insecurities, because we had other guys around there to hold, like, let's say, if we managed really in a very amazing way, I have to say. And it was a really profound moment. But yeah, I experienced situations like that run sideways very differently. The outcome is not understanding of each other.
Yeah, you need a safe, a powerful vessel that is holding space for, in this case, for the two of you to dare to be vulnerable and dare to voice how you're feeling, because probably without the rest of the circle, that wouldn't have been totally possible. So I totally get it. And for me, that's very much, I cannot avoid making parallels with the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. And when we speak about this principle of Sankirtan, that many times is translated in a more simplistic way as congregational chanting of the names of the divine. And of course, that's there. But also, it's also about being in a safe space, in a safe circle with like-minded people where we feel safe to be vulnerable, open our hearts and connect with our source and be and feel whatever we need to be and feel at that moment. And for that, you need also, you need a safe vessel holding space, because if not, many times a sacred practice like Sankirtan may become more performative than profound, or more musical than mystical, so to
Yeah,
say. So
yeah,
the foundation of safety needs to be there
yeah.
for
And
sure.
then this is what happens if it becomes more musical than mystical, and that's the possible response in this moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and even music can become a protective shield from the fact that I don't feel safe enough to open myself in another dimension to the rest in that moment.
Everything, we can use everything.
Yeah, yeah. Everything can be a mask, everything can be a mirror,
Yeah,
as they say.
yeah,
I'm thinking, Madav, regarding safety, also in your paper you mentioned, you emphasize micro interactions, if we would put it those ways, like touch or voice or rhythm, speaking about Sankirtan, or proximity,
yeah.
like micro interactions as foundational teachers of safety.
This
So
is how we
I
learn
don't know
it.
if, and I totally appreciate it. So give me a few examples of this, if we can, so we can know how to speak about tenderness and touch in trauma sensitive ways, so to say.
You see, the thing is, yeah, yeah. I mean, I received and touched other people not being present for many years, for many years, and it felt off, and I didn't know why. So it's more here again. It's like with the micro expressions, that was just the an explanation of how the transmission actually works. That is actually all the micro expressions that we have, and that's all in a relationship is as well. All the micro expressions are the real foundation of the love, because love is it's an art form. It's something I have to decide to really participate, to commit myself. So,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
by knowing how important they are, by knowing their function, like this is how we feel present and loved on a daily basis with these micro impressions. I use this example for example when I ask patients, how did your parents react when you entered the room? How did they look at you? So that's and that's creating many things. That's a narrative. That's an attachment. Like, is it the look like, or is it like, yeah, yeah? And what is it? And that's just that's really a micro moment. Nobody actually can really control, but you receive it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and as a child, if you received 400,000 times, like, here he comes again, then any friendliness after that has no grip. I mean, it's not, no foundation. Because inside as well, even if
Mm-hmm.
there comes something, like inside, you would already like a little bit contract, and then even like things that might be loving that would come your way, you won't receive it fully anyway. If you have two people in the room and you enter one and you see the look from the one and the other one is loving, you won't receive the full energy of the love, because you're partly
Mm-hmm.
already in protective mode, and that's something we can't really control. We can't control what signal my nervous system is sending when someone enters the room. It's impossible. But I can practice presence. I can practice the friendship with that. I can practice and take responsibility if whatever I radiate, I can see, oh, this energy was causing a trauma, saying, oh, sorry, that was actually not meant for you. I'm distracted in the moment. And just entering you, the room, was, I felt that the pressure I feel anyway was just more, because it felt like there's a demand. I just saw a demand coming my way before you even opened the mouth, for example, so that would be taking responsibility for that. Does that make sense? It was not
I'm reflecting
in order to for your question.
Yeah, it does. That no, yeah, it does. Thank you. And it keeps me thinking, because it makes sense. It keeps me thinking about all the things that make sense in that regard.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Starting with the idea of micro interactions that sometimes we. Yeah, please feel free. Let's switch roles and let's go to the Madav podcast now.
No,
Padmanabha
it's like because I'm strictly exploring really the biological architecture of that, and I'm keeping out the consciousness completely, because that's another realm. It's more your business, your habitat. and I recently asked myself if there might be a different interpretation of the term original sin. I mean, it's like has a lot of connotations with that we know that, but if we make a step back and like see what actually could it be, like what could be the nature of that, and then I was thinking of, or like that emerged inside of me, and it's not so much thinking, it's like really unfolding, emerging inside of me. What if this consciousness, the space, the absolute, how you call it in your book, when we're in a meditation chair or in bliss of the divine, it's not the whole package of of consciousness. It's just a fraction of it, and we make it the whole package because that's all we can grasp. That's one part of the question. The other part of the question would be, what if this, and referring to myself basically here, with the intelligence of the biology. So who put the trauma capability in place? Who made the design of like that we need attachment, and made it like, I mean, this is it's such a, like I really call it the godly design, the divine design of how everything like really interacts with each other. Is like, it's so brilliant. At the same time, it's so simple. It's a very simple code that has the possibility to be so complex. So what if this is actually as well consciousness? It's just a different aspect, and that the original sin is that with their human arrogance, let me put it this way, frame it this way a little bit, that we think that the divine space that we enter from the meditation chair is everything. That's the whole consciousness area, and it's maybe just a fraction of it.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I hope I understood them correctly. Let's see, you will tell me from what I say. And again, these are realities. A dialogue is a conversation, so there's no end to what we can say about it. For sure, I will say that even our how to say wildest imagination about the divine, about consciousness, or even our deepest experiences about what we may call the divine or God or the ultimate or the absolute, whatever, however we may like to call them, for sure it's always a fraction of what the totality of that actually is. And again, as I try to make the case in my book Evolution and Divine Love, it's an ever-evolving reality. So even if you, hypothetically speaking, you were to encompass, to embrace, to have a full experience of everything there is, at the next moment that all became a little bit more something else. So it's always outpacing us.
Yeah,
It's
not
always
jumping in the same
growing
river.
and expanding. So yeah. So one of my teachers, Srila Bhakti Dev Goswami Maharaj, he will say, we can just touch one point in one line of infinity. He will use that language. Speak about infinity, the infinite. And we can just touch one point. If we have the proper attention and focus, whatever. I mean, if we happen to connect with the infinite, because we can be really, I mean, we are always in relationship to it, but we may be absent-minded to it. We may not be focused enough, aware enough, present enough to realize that. But if we happen to have that moment of presence and awareness and connection with the infinite, we will always only be able to touch one point of that infinite line or infinite spiral, however you may like to call it. And just that one point will be overwhelming to us. No? Like there is so much, because one point of the infinite is infinite. Right? There is infinity. So in that sense, going to your questions, we could say that even in the analysis of the world of matter, through natural sciences, biology, whatever, I mean, to this day, scientists, they are still, and they, I will argue, continue to explore something like the atom. It's not that they will find an end to it, because in one sense, that's one point in the infinite line. I mean, so in that sense, there is consciousness in the background of everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's what our particular philosophy teaches, is consciousness is the backdrop of reality, of creation. It's not absent at any moment. We may be absent to its presence, but as I like to say, consciousness is an omnipresent reality. So of course, one may ask, oh, if that's omnipresent, why I'm not perceiving it? Because we are omni-absent to the omnipresence of consciousness.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have that free will, that choice of becoming absent to that which is obvious and is omnipresent. That's very paradoxical, very interesting, but we have that potential as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, how I see it, by being alive and participating, I would really say by participating, maybe consciousness or not consciousness, we're already part of this expansion. We are part of that, even if even that it means like my life may be miserable, my personal life, and this. But how do I know that I don't touch someone else's life and make a change, or what my children's life gonna be, or like I like this example of this because she's talking about this as well. There's this really amazing couple therapist, Esther Perel from Belgium, and she lives in the US. And she comes from Holocaust survivors, and like almost her like, so she grew up in an environment of Holocaust survivors in Belgium, and so she is really entrenched from that. So she's the next generation. So these people had mostly her former generation, a really, I mean, miserable is probably not the right term even for that. So,
Mhm.
and I like that example as like, and now there's coming out like this wonderful next generation that is now helping in a way to millions of people to relate and to love each other in a better way. Now,
Mhm.
like that's still happening from people who were, sitting in a cassette at some point. So so there's still part in and it's not about the individual thing. It's more just about the structure of being able to really to bring potential into the world, even if your personal life
Mhm.
and your personal experience might be, yeah, really problematic.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. I cannot avoid thinking of. I really appreciate your point because many times we lose sight of our potential for participation when in life, when our life is considerably miserable, as you say, we may feel, okay, I'm not being so invited to participate now because I'm miserable. And actually, at any given moment, you are equally invited to participate. It's not that being miserable or being happy or being this or that diminishes your chances of participating. In one sense, everyone is already participating. As a mentor of mine, Richard Rowell, saying his own words, everything belongs. So in one sense, it's not that we need to do something in order to belong. We are already belonging to the whole, to the greater whole, but we need to gain awareness of that and understand, okay, then I'm participating already. And from that place, understand that not no matter which situation I'm in, I can always make a contribution, so to say, to
Yeah,
reality. I can, since you mentioned about Holocaust survivors, I cannot avoid thinking of Viktor Frankl and his man's search for meaning, and how in that situation, what he was so restricted in what he could do or choose, still he found, I can choose something internally. I can participate in
yeah,
life. There is meaning and purpose in waiting for me inherent there. So even in the most restricted of scenarios, still you can fully participate in existence. We may need to be creative and have ways of knowing how to do so, and deconstruct certain ideas how to participate in life. But yeah, the invitation is always extended no matter what, right?
yeah, true. And at the same time, it's really important that we as well acknowledge that this knowledge is not always available. That's very important because as that's one of the big things or that it intrigued me in the trauma work is um, because everything you just said is true, and I could say this to anyone, and it's truth, but it's like, where is this person? Like, and we have the tendency, and that's part of the little bit of the problem that we always, not always, many times find in spiritual or semi-spiritual realms, that people don't have, if the contraction is there, is the limitation is there, they don't have the capacity to feel that and to comprehend this, and that needs co-regulation and empathy first, in order that there is an expansion. But here again, that it doesn't work with will, and this is something that is many times missed. Like just pointing to the truth is just not helpful. It's many times not helpful. It's helpful in the moment I'm regulated and I can, but it's like even physical. Am I really in misery? If my system is flooded with survival energy, like my neocortex is offline. It's just busy, it's like just the amygdala is at the driver's seat and just having a blast, So the information, it's not even, there's no ground to land. And we have the tendency, that's part of one aspect of the big aspect of the religion, of the functionality, to judge ourselves that we can't do this. That we, like when we out of that situation, then we look back and say, hey, why I could have been different. Why I was so stupid. Why I didn't left earlier, or whatever it is. We forget, no, but in this moment, it was not available to you. Even if I would have told you your situation like it is, there was nothing to receive it online. And that's really important that we remind ourselves and each other as well sometimes.
Yeah. It's a humbling lesson. And I was thinking what you say, sometimes pointing to the truth is not, it's not only not enough, but it can be harmful in one sense to some people. And I was thinking, and because not everyone will be ready to process it and receive it. And for me, I was thinking, okay, in that case, then pointing to the truth will be, what's the truth of any specific person at this particular moment, and that will be the truth, not necessarily just this dogma. Okay, this is the truth. Here it is. Well, if you accept it, you are good. You are a good boy, good girl, saved. And if you don't, it's your fault. It's your blame. It's yours. No. Truth is, okay, we have the absolute truth, but who is fully embedded in that platform? And each one of us is going through their own experience of what's true for you at this precise moment. So I may need to address that truth first, as you said, before we can even look, or we can even think about something called the truth.
Yeah.
Right? So first, what's your truth, and how can we be relational and relatable on that level, and speak that same language so it's relatable to you, and from there we can gradually be open to conceive and think and have the capacity to deal with a bigger truth, or a more powerful truth. I'm thinking even now about something, because again, trying to make full circle, speaking about unconditional love and self-love, and again, being self-compassionate in moments like the ones you mentioned, rather than picking the whip and, oh, I shouldn't be like that, why I did that stupid thing in the past, and be more understanding with ourselves and more loving, and show some unconditional regard to ourselves and then extend it to others. And at least in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, but in every spiritual tradition, this idea of unconditional love is present. But I'm thinking sometimes it could be also an overwhelming idea. So I'm thinking, what does unconditional love require in order to be receivable? No? Speaking about what you are mentioning.
But that would be the notion that we have about unconditional love. As I see it, the unconditional love is active in this moment. As I said, in this moment of a person in, like, let's say, in deep despair, like really, really deep despair. I've been at these places for sure. So in like almost full contraction mode, but that's my whole point. The capability to be in this mode is already that love. That's the caregiver, the universal caregiver that is actually in our favor, in order to, yes, okay, you're flooded with survival energy and all that, and like you don't have help in this moment and no resources, whatever, but still you can breathe in and out, And like, of course, we know that by now, because I came out many times of that, to see now I can remember in when I'm in this situation, like, okay, I know it's temporary. But it took me like, I don't know how many experiences to be there, that this fraction of that is available, and to see, okay, there's nothing I can do right now. Just breathe, just to be with myself and to figure out as well, like that would be befriending the nervous system, is like, okay, what are the most effective resources in a moment like that? Which friend do I need to call? Where, like, or is it the walk in the woods, or do I need to go to the sauna, or even allowing ourselves for maybe dysfunctional resources that calm us down, like smoking a joint or having a beer or whatever it is, that temporarily can take a little off the pressure. And I'm not advertising here dysfunctional systems, but it's still, that's what, if this is available in this moment, like the only thing that is available, and that's fine too. That's how we are. We need some pressure relief, and yeah, but of course, if we just stick in the circle and yeah, nothing goes further, then the despair just sticks. Nothing will change. And some people just are like not lucky that they find resources. I don't know if what happened to me if I would not have my really beloved teachers and mentors 10 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah, we all need our guardian angels, for sure. I'm thinking as we wrap up today's conversation, I remember not so much from your recent paper, but from some of our conversations, I think, especially when we were talking in Germany a few months ago, this notion of came from of being, a movement from being to belonging to becoming.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like a very interesting sequence, so to
Yes.
say.
Yeah.
All of them start with the word be, right? To be, to belong, to become. So I don't know if you have any words in connection to that.
That's something that as a German mystic as well, came up with Thomas Hübel. He lives in Israel.
Okay.
He's a spiritual teacher who went into the trauma field. So he defined these three words, and they stick with me. Like that, he proposes that these are the three things that we need to be, to belong, and then to become. So in my language, it's to be is like in tune with the nervous system, with my state, where I am, what is my system, my biological system actually experiencing, feedbacking to me. So and to give myself the allowance to be exactly how it is in this very moment. And from there, that to be like, belonging is the transference of, that's the dialogue, that's the dialogue. I belong to the world, to my friends, to my spouse, to myself, to the infinite, and to find like my way of responding to all that touch points of that context. And in order with the touch points, then there is the becoming. If I allow that as much as possible. And of course, that's only possible if I'm not dealing with a lot of survival stress inside of my system. To unfold the potential, to find what is my true response to the context that I'm in, and to me, that is by itself a very spiritual thing. Without any, I don't need anything other, because I really think that's, and from there, then it can, like as you said, it's always expanding. So it can go there, but it needs to be grounded there.
Yeah. I appreciate your phrasing, your articulation of that, and the importance of first, as you say, being acceptance of who I am, where I am, what's coming now, what I'm feeling now, having that foundational sense of self-acceptance and acceptance of whatever is coming and happening, because if not, we basically live in denial or resistance to reality. And as the saying goes, what we resist persists. Dismantling that resistance, and I know it may be a whole work for us to dismantle the resisting mechanism or the defense mechanism until we feel strong enough to accept what's coming and be, and then again feel the belonging, feel and be in part, feel I'm connected, feel there is dialogue, and on the foundation of that relational, dialogical experience, becoming, being able to imagine, to conceive, and to actualize an ever-evolving potential, ever-evolving horizon. But I agree there needs to be that preliminary foundation, because again, it's easy to be tempted to just talk about brightest potential and ever-evolving and eternal becoming. Yeah, great, beautiful, but there may be some other considerations that need to be in place first. So the actual becoming is a becoming. So we come to the becoming. No, sorry, I was saying. So we can come to the becoming. First, we have to have a sense of belonging, a sense of being part, a sense of connection, of relationality, of dialogue. And also first we need to accept who we are, where we are, and deal with that. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. And as we close, Madhava, I don't know if is there any simple insight or invitation or thought that you would like to leave with our listeners, something so they can walk with as they continue their own journey?
Everything you feel makes sense. There's nothing you feel inside or experience there is no sense to. Everything has a purpose and a sense.
Leaving some silence for us to be able to allow that idea to sink in, and yeah, everything has a purpose and a meaning, and therefore there is hope. Thank you so much, dear Madav. It has been really a pleasure as usual to sit and share with you, and look forward to future opportunities to continue exploring together.
Thank you for having me, taking the time, being interested, being present.
Thank you. Deep gratitude.
Bye.